מלאך עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון. ממלך מלאכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאך עליון. ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Yedid Nefesh is found on page number 10 in the Siddur, and we also have the transliteration, the red ink at the bottom of page 10, Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh Harachamon, Yedid Nefesh Harachamon, Meshavtecha Beretzonecha, Meshavtecha Yalalayla Beretzonecha.
And L'chun Ranana on page number 11. 6 Psalms, and then L'Charodi, and the 7th Psalm. And the 6 Psalms represent, you might say, ordinary time, the days of the week, and the tone ascends and ascends, and the culmination of the tone is not in the Psalms, but in the L'Charodi, which is a song, but not from the Bible. And then after L'Charodi comes the Psalm for Shabbat. And it strikes me this evening, as we look at the conclusion of the first Psalm, Lo Chunaranana, the English stanza on page 12. For 40 years I was troubled by that generation, and I said, these are people whose hearts have gone astray. They do not know my way. So in anger I swore they would not enter my rest. And I've asked repeatedly, why do we have this psalm introducing the 5 successive psalms leading to the L'Charodi? And I don't think it's because the last stanza ends on a slightly sour tone. I think it's because of the opening stanza, which speaks of, come on, let's walk together, walking in a pathway of song and of singing. Still in all, this remains in my mind because this is the psalmic take on something that happened in our history described just a few weeks ago in the Torah reading. And the psalmic take is that the people of Israel went astray because their hearts weren't pure. So on this Friday night, as we're starting to enter that zone of those next 5 psalms leading up to L'Charodi, let's activate our hearts. And the first step is reminding ourselves of the importance of bringing love from our hearts into the world. There's a song sheet here tonight, Lev Belev. The lyrics and the music are by Beth Schaefer.
So very far away, and in spending time with you, I realize God is in our love, fueling the fire of our lives from day to day. Lev belev, heart and heart, where my hand stops, your hand stops, in a circle of love that has no end. Lev belev, heart and heart, God's been with us from the start. In this complicated world, you'll need a friend, and so I'll keep you close to me. Lev belev. When we listen for God's voice, we think we'll hear it loud and clear, like a giant clap of thunder from the sky. But in singing songs with you, it is the most attentive ear, knows that God dwells between the words for us to find. Lev belev, heart and heart, where my hand stops, your hand starts, in a circle of love that has no end. Lev belev, heart and heart, God's been with us from the start. In this complicated world, you'll need a friend, and so I'll keep you close to me. Lev belev. touch, we hope our pain will go away. In an instant, in a moment, be renewed. But as we work together toward that sacred, peaceful day, we learn that God heals each of us through me and you. Believe, heart and heart. My hand stops, your hand stops, in a circle of love that has no end. Believe, heart and heart. God's been with us from the start. In this complicated world, you'll need a friend. So I'll keep you close to me. God will be with us as together we will stay. They've believed.
Before we begin the Lacharodi, I have a thought to share tonight. In a moment, Lacharodi will be on page 23. But before we begin, I wish to share some thoughts. I don't think we speak enough of the Sidur's expectation that you and I are creatures of love. And so tonight I want to touch on that for just a moment, that you and I are seen through the mindset of our tradition as creatures of love. And in a moment, we're going to do something that's a little bit different, something that we've drifted away from. We're going to sing the entire Lechadodi. But first, we need to touch on how and where the Lechadodi comes forth as a message of a sharing of love. And the first thought is, as you know, Jewish people were victimized horribly during the time of the Spanish Inquisition. And many people went to different parts of Europe and Asia Minor, and a group of Kabbalists, people thinking of the universe in very ecstatic ways, settled in a remote location known as Tzfat. And if you've ever traveled to Tzfat, you know that during the winter, it's cold and rainy and inhospitable. And during the summer, it's hot and warm and lacking of water and equally inhospitable. And you might ask, why would anybody in his right mind go to Tzfat? And the answer, I think, is that when you're running away from somebody who's bigger than you and has proven in the past that he's going to bring an army after you, you're likely to go to a place that you think nobody will follow. So Tzfat fits the bill. It's hard to get to, out of the way, and you're still in survival mode. And I think that gives forth the, you might say, the kickstart to why a major part of Kabbalah originates in Tzfat, because they're constantly looking over their shoulder, wondering, are they safe? And gradually realizing, yes, they are safe, and looking only to the mountains, and only to the skies, and only to the sun and the moon, and attributing their safety, a sense of refuge, you might say, to God. And it's within this mold that it emerges Lurianic Kabbalah. And within the school of Lurianic Kabbalah comes along a rabbi named Shlomo Levi Alkabetz. And he writes Lechadodi. And it's only 500 years old. And he writes it for he and his friends, his colleagues, his students, to go out into the hills and dance Friday evening. Those hills that were a refuge from some very bad people who just recently had wanted to do some very bad things to all Jews everywhere. And Shlomo Levi Alkabetz writes this poem and it catches on, and it leaves the spot, and it migrates, and it arrives in and takes hold of many Jewish homes, many Jewish communities thereafter. And what's striking about Shlomo Levi, this man who's seeking refuge and also a touch of the heavens, puts his own name into the Lechadodi in an abbreviated form. So tonight, look at Lechadodi on page 23. And the first stanza begins with the word Shamor with an enlarged shin. And that's the first letter of Shlomo's name. And the second stanza, Likrat, begins with a lamed enlarged. That's the second letter of Shlomo's name. And Mikdash, enlarged mem, his name. And turn to the top of page 24, and you see Hisna'ari or Hitna'ari, a large hay. That's the end of Shlomo's first name. And then on page 24, the second stanza, Hisori or Hitori, that's the hay for Halevi. And Lo Tevoshi, the bottom stanza on 24, that's the lamed for his Halevi. And on page 25, nearly finished, Vehayu begins with a Vav, and Yamin begins with a Yud. And presto, his name, Shlomo Halevi, is in the poem. And in the when you and I are singing his song, I would like to tell him, 500 years later, that we're singing along with you, Shlomo Halevi. And there's nothing to be afraid of, because people are now safe and secure. And your refuge of living in a mountain, in a way, has taken hold. And I want to reiterate the themes of love that I find within Lechadodi. And first on page 23, we see the familiar stanza beginnings with Shamor v'Zachor, which remind us of the two sets of the 10 commandments found in the Torah, one in the book of Exodus, one in the book of Deuteronomy. In Exodus it says, Shamor, observe Shabbat. In Deuteronomy it says, Zachor, remember Shabbat. And Shabbat is, you might say, a lodestone of love between people of Israel and God. And so we're starting this poem of love by saying, God, we are committed to expressing our love of you by two different understandings of Shabbat, Exodus and Deuteronomy. And then we jump to page 24, and you see two stanzas that begin with a hey. Hit na'ari and hit ori, and they both have vocabulary that's drawn poetically out of some exquisite writing from the book of Isaiah in the Hebrew Bible. And the theme and the tone in the book of Isaiah in that little section speaks of God's light given to the world out of the sake of God's love for the world, for humanity, and for Israel. So woven into these stanzas here on page 24, Hit Na'ari and Hotri, is the idea that God has shared light and love with us. And Shlomo Levi, whose name you now know, has poetically woven those themes of light and love into this poem, which is now directed not only from his heart, but to his heart. And now I wish to say, look at the bottom of page 24. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Why are you downcast? And maybe he's reverting a little bit to the originating theme or tone of why he and many Jews fled, poetically speaking, those adversaries. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be afraid. Come, my beloved. The poem again saying, in effect, that you and I are walking into a room and Shabbat and God are with us, reiterating the theme of love. And nearly finished, I just wish to point out here on page number 25, it's the first stanza, which lately we've come to, by force of habit, to not sing, but tonight we're singing it. God and you will celebrate together a bride and groom in joyful embrace. And the word is chatan or chasan and kala. And those are the Hebrew words for bride and groom. So the theme again is reiterating the message of the love that God has for the people of Israel, when we sing L'Charodi, in effect, we're almost being invited to a wedding between God and the entire nation of Israel. The theme of love escorts us into this section, and we conclude here in a moment, page 25, with the Bowie stanza, and we're standing up, we're turning to the door, and we're looking for Shabbat, and in essence, a little element of God to walk in the door and take hold of us. And so now we remember how L'Chadodi sits in the service as a message of and a reminder of and for love. May we take hold of that message every single Friday night. And now the entire L'Chadodi, and you'll catch on to this melody, pages 23, 24, and 25. Nativ, that group that I've spoken of many times that we've incorporated into our service, sings this melody, and I think we'll all join in. Pages 23, 24, and 25, L'Chadodi. We greeted the bride and groom. We greeted Shabbat. We are seated. One side note, it's very traditional, musically speaking, in terms of our musical tradition, to switch melodies in the middle of Chadodi. Sometimes you'll even hear 3 different melodies, some of them, frankly, very different than each other. It's considered part of the craft. Does a cantor, a shot, a baltapila have what it takes to be able to switch within a middle of one melody and start a new melody? And that's part of the excitement. And as I said before, the theme of love, which is in the Chadodi. The Psalm for Shabbat on page 27. Miss Moore.
השיר ליום השבת, להודות לאדוני,
ולזמר לשמחה עליון, וזמר לשמחה עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדיך, ואמונתך בלילות. הסור והלילה והיגיון לבחינות. שיר ליום השבת, הללויה אדוני, זמר לשמך עליון, זמר לשמך עליון, כי שימחתני אדוני לפועלך, מעשה ידיך תרנם, מה גדול מצאת אדוני, עמק ומחשבו תזמור שיר ליום השבת, ולהודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
On page 27, counting up, just one stanza, it's the third stanza up from the bottom on the English side. How subtle are your works, Adonai, how subtle your design. Stop there, it's Magadlu. And again, this is a poem from the book of Tehillim, Psalms. And I think this was selected to be partnered with Shabbat because it has a take on creation. But it's a different take than Breshit and Genesis. Look at page 28, the last two stanzas. And remembering, of course, the theme of creation in Genesis, where are the first two people placed? In a garden. Look at the next to last stanza. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. And what is different here in the Psalmic understanding of creation as opposed to Breshit is the quality, the caliber of the people involved in the universe. Would we consider that Adam and Eve were righteous? Not really. She took the fruit without permission. That's theft, by the way. She gave it to him. He becomes a co-conspirator. He eats it. They both stolen. They hide. They lie. And they cheat. And they try to cover up the theft. Those are the real issues as we adult Jews look at the experience in the garden. So the creation talks about flawed people. Whereas here the Psalmic version of looking at the universe wants to see that you and I contribute value and justice and honor and nobility into the world. That's a difference between Psalms and Breshit in the Torah. Last stanza. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw. And again, if we think about the Breshit piece, the Genesis piece, we don't really have people who are acting upright or testifying to the uprightness of God. We have people who are trying to run away. Tehillim paints a very different picture. In this section of Tehillim, of Psalms, we're looking at the universe in a much more hopeful way. It's an aspirational manner of looking at how you and I fit in the world. And that's what it's attached to, I think. Shabbat. Rise the Borchu, page 39b. Baruch hu et Adonai Amavorach. Baruch Amavorach Leolam Vaed. The first bracha. Baruch et Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space. You completed your work of creation on the seventh day, calling this day from one evening to the next the holy Shabbat, and gave this day of rest in all its holiness to your people Israel, creator of day and night, rolling light before darkness, darkness from light, making day pass and bringing on the evening, distinguishing day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. El Chai v'Kayom, Amidim Locha Le'olam Voed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Haravim. This bracha speaks of day and night, of time and of creation. And now, the other song sheet, Holy Ground, the song by Craig Taubman.
Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, everything, everyone, every place, every way, where you walk, where you stand, where you love, where you praise. All of life is holy ground. Every he, every she, every what, every who. It's in her, it's in them, it's in me, it's in you. In the bitter, in the sweet, in the calm, in the storm. All of life is holy ground. So walk as if it's holy ground. Breathe as if it's all around. Talk and make a holy sound. Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. When you hurt, when you heal, when you laugh, when you pray, when you hold, when you keep, when you give it away. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day. All of life is holy ground. So walk as if it's holy ground. Breathe as if it's all around. Talk and make a holy sound. We take our shoes off, we're on holy ground. We are one people, one story, one tapestry we weave, one journey, one glory, one legacy we leave. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, everything, everyone, every place, every way, where you walk, where you stand, where you love, where you praise. All of life is holy ground. Can you feel the holy ground? Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground.
And the second blessing, recited every single night of the year, speaks of, I'm using this word deliberately, unearthly love. because the love that comes forth from the creator of the cosmos is entirely different. And Jewish tradition is teaching that sense of beyond the ordinary love is essential for our well-being, as essential as time and space, gravity and earth. And that's why it's here, following the blessing of Hama Rivarim, creation. Look at the little red arrow on the English side. It's a very gutsy sentence because it's a command. And who are we to command God to do anything? And I think it's a command because the stakes are high. We can't bear the idea that God's love will ever be removed. So we say, Al tasir, don't ever remove. Look at that line. Do not ever withdraw your love from us. Baruch atah Adonai, who loves the people of Israel. Al tasir. V'avotecha al tasir mimenu l'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 41. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayo hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'divarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'valektecha v'derech v'v'shachbecha v'kumecha v'kishar tamlot ha'yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha v'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha. Moment of Tulu. Private thought on page 42. Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 44, the English side. Then Moses, Miriam, and the people of Israel joyfully sang to you. U'malchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael Lechanu shira b'simcha rabah v'yamru chulam. Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, adorned in holiness, revered in praise, working wonders? Mi chamocha po'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tilot osei felem. Your children recognize your sovereignty. As you split the sea before Moses, "This is my God," they responded and said, "Adonai will reign forever and ever." Malchutecha ra'o banecha, bokeh yam lifnei Moshe, zeli anu v'yamro, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. And so it is written, Adonai has rescued Jacob and redeemed him from the hand of those more powerful than he. Baruch atah Adonai, who redeemed the people Israel. Hashkidenu on the top of page 45. Hashkidenu, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. The canopy of peace over us. Ushmor tzeitenu v'aleinu l'chaim u'shalom et aviad olam ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. The top of page 46, the Shamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי אהבת ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ובני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינחש, וביום השביעי שבת וינחש.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבו, ויראה בחייכם וביומכם ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבו מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח יתפאר וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה ברכו לעילם וכל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא אמרו amen. Prior to rising, please turn to page 49. Something's on my mind again tonight. Look at the top of the page. This is the third bracha, English side, Hebrew side, third bracha, God's holiness. Every single day when we say the Amidah, which is 3 times a day traditionally, we say this blessing. Did you know that you're in the prayer book? You're in the prayer book. The Siddur, the prayer book, talks about you. Each one of you, those joining on the line, all of us. Holy are you and holy is your name. That's talking about God. Holy ones praise you each day. That's us, folks. The prayer book is of the opinion that you and I are holy. Furthermore, it presumes, it states, as a fact, you might say, that we are holy all the time. Wow. Not just Friday, not just Saturday, every single day of the week, every moment of the day, each one of us, all of us, are holy. And if you look at the next little stanza with the number 4, fourth bracha, holiness of Shabbat, that talks about Shabbat and God making Shabbat holy, God making time holy, by viewing time as an opportunity to have meaning. That's what it means to bless. Shabbat, near the bottom of this paragraph, becomes holy because God blessed it, which means God evaluated time as having an opportunity and a capacity to be filled with meaning. Well, you and I are joined with God as being holy and time through the lens of Shabbat as being holy. We're not just taking up space. We have a value viewed by God. We rise the silent prayer. Yitkaral v'yitkarah shemei Rabbah. B'almati b'rakutei m'kotem chashtim Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach. Olam li'olmei olmaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitparach v'tzei v'yidadar v'yidalev v'yidhalal shmei d'kudashah B'richu leila min kol brachata b'shirata tishbachata v'nechamata da'amiron b'yalma v'imero Amen. Tidkabel tzloton v'oton d'choisra kadamo v'nivshai v'imero Amen. Yehei shalom mishmach v'imero Amen. Oseh shalom b'mama v'yaseh shalom olen v'imero Amen. We rise Aleinu on page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'ateit gedula le'otzei breshit shelo asanek goyei aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech machei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Noteh Shamayim V'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshav Yekarov HaShamayim Imal V'Shrinatu Zo V'Gavei Meromim Hu Eloheinu Ein Od Emet Malkein Yadato Ayom Yadato Vashevota El Lavavecha Hi Adonai Hu Elohim Vashamayim Mimol V'yoretz mitochot ein od. Kakatu b'Torah techa Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar. In a moment, the mourner's Kaddish in the Siddur on page number 58. And this Shabbat we remember with great love Eric Milak, Jackson Martin, Shirley Browning, Annie O. Prince, Susan Cam, Ida Bell Brook, Ida G. Muchnick, Nathan Sobel, Flora Gerhardt, Irving Rygrod, Albert Jett, Zelda Perlman, Erwin Marcus, Morris Berkowitz, Fidel Lichtenfeld, Dr. William Gerwich, J.B. Michelle, Bert Gerwich, Leo Berman, Sidney Rossner, Moses A. Baer, Robert Podolsky. Are there any other names to mention this evening? Or perhaps someone joining at home has a name to share? Those reciting Kaddish are invited to rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'olma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chaye echon v'yom echon v'chaye techol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zaman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach la'olam olamei olmaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'a miran ba'alma v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. We call out for peace for those near and those distant, those mourning and those not. We call out for peace for the entire world. That's how we conclude the Mourner's Kaddish. That's where we conclude most of our prayers. Tomorrow morning, of course, Shabbos morning, davening, and lunch to follow. Woohoo! Folks, if you're joining in on the internet, and I know you are, remember, we really want you to come back into the building. Our policy is vaccinated or masked, and we are noticing that there is a slight, or maybe more than a slight uptick. So if people are not feeling well, we are presuming people will exercise discretion and not join us in the building, but hopefully soon you'll be coming back into the building. And of course, Havdalah on Zoom tomorrow night at 8, and Monday Tanakh, and Tuesday Adult Hebrew, and that's on YouTube, and Spirit is on Zoom. And I think that's it for right now. And tonight we're going to conclude in a slightly different way. In a moment we'll have a song played. But as we exit this building, and as those joining in online at home are about to conclude their cyber service, you might say, I want you to take hold of a theme that's important. It's part of our every single day Jewish perspective, that God is right next to us. And God walks with us every single day.
We are walking in the light of God. 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 We are walking. We are walking. We are walking in the light of God. We are walking. We are walking. We are walking in the light of God. 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 We are walking. We are walking. We are walking in the light of God. We are walking in the light of God.
Shabbat shalom. Good Shabbos.